Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Mr. Speaker, America and the world have been shocked by the deadly earthquake in Turkey and Syria on February 6, which killed more than 50,000 people and injured more than 100,000 people. Entire cities and towns near the epicenter in Turkey have been wiped off the map. 5 million people are homeless, and over 20 million are in need now. We are grateful to see such a generous and compassionate American response. Many brave men and women, both inside Turkey, Syria, and others from around the globe, sprang into action to work relentlessly at search and rescue operations and providing relief to the people impacted on the ground. At Incirlik Air Base, a very strategic American air base in Turkey, just 125 miles from the earthquake epicenter, the 728th Air Mobility Squadron and the 39th Operational Support Squadron have worked quickly to coordinate with the United States Agency for International Development to deliver aid to those impacted on the ground who are in need. American families offer sincere sympathies to the families who are mourning loved ones and nursing others back to health. The Republic of Turkey, for over 70 years, has been a valued NATO ally and is co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on U.S.-Turkey relations, and Turkish Americans. I'm particularly supportive of their efforts to meet to the needs of the impacted earthquake victims. The entrepreneurial Turkish American and Syrian American communities have been mobilized, such as Vinny and Nestle Sinturk, owners of Hidden Valley Tavern in Sapphire, North Carolina, represented by Congressman Chuck Edwards, who are raising funds to help the people in Turkey. The Civil Defense, better known as the White Helmets, have been instrumental in the search and rescue efforts, in addition to clearing rubble and opening roads to facilitate the distribution of relief aid by local non-government organizations. Their efforts saved at least 3,000 lives, despite being left alone and receiving no material international support through the critical and crucial first days of the response. Impressive assistance by Raed al-Salaya and all the other White Helmets which he leads has been achieved to help the people who are so desperately needed to advocate and provide real assistance. To make this devastating tragedy worse, Syria's brutal dictator Assad is stealing humanitarian aid, and even worse, has continued bombing the affected areas at least 10 times since the earthquake. There have already been videos of the Assad regime soldiers stealing aid that is attempting to reach Syrian communities in need. The United Nations has been stopped to provide critical aid into northwest Syria because of war criminal Putin's veto on the border crossing assistance in the United Nations Security Council. This is after the Assad regime initially refused to permit humanitarian aid through northern points of entry that are controlled by the opposition groups. The United Nations should not politicize humanitarian assistance. Even further, the UN should circumvent the obstructions of Assad and war criminal Putin, which denies humanitarian aid to earthquake victims. It is significant that this resolution calls on President Biden to use all diplomatic means to push the UN to get aid to those in need. Natasha Hall from the Center for Strategic and International Studies has said it clearly, quote, "The Syrian government has perfected the politicization and weaponization of humanitarian aid through the civil war. In some cases, it's far more effective than the military offensive," end of quote. Yet Assad, to add insult to injury, continues to lie and blame U.S. sanctions for causing delays in aid. This is simply not true. As this resolution makes clear, Mr. Speaker, sanctions on war criminals like Assad, which passed on a bipartisan basis, prevent the regime from obtaining the resources to further brutalize the people of Syria and do not inhibit humanitarian assistance. I am deeply saddened that there has been a weakening of sanctions by the Biden administration on the Assad regime through permitting direct transactions with the Assad regime. This will do nothing to help the earthquake relief and will only endanger Syrian civilians by enriching the regime. We are already seeing the result of Biden's weak policy this week, with Arab countries beginning to normalize relations with the regime and ignoring the Caesar Act which threatens the consequences for normalization. Despite this, let it be known that Congress will continue to stand with the Caesar Act on bipartisan basis and strengthen sanctions on Assad and those who engage this barbaric regime. It is gruesomely clear that there is no solution to the problems in Syria so long as the brutal Assad regime remains in power. Terrorism, refugees, war crimes, Iranian influence, chemical weapons, narco-trafficking, genocide. Assad is the driver of all of these. The earthquake proves the point yet again. American families' prayers and sincere condolences go to the people of Turkey and Syria. To the brutal Assad regime and its backers, war criminal Putin, the authoritarian Ayatollah in Iran, there will be a message. Your diversion of humanitarian aid during an earthquake is despicable. You are not fooling anyone with your lies about sanctions. The U.S. Congress stands united. We will never normalize with you. We will hold all those who attempt to normalize with you accountable, and we will not stop supporting the people of Syria to have a government they deserve based on democracy with rule of law, not authoritarians with rule of gun. It is bipartisan in America to support freedom for the people of Syria and Iran and victory for the people of Ukraine, seeking to defend their country from authoritarian governments. Again, our prayers go to those affected by the earthquake. God bless the people of Turkey, Syria, and the United States of America. I yield.